How do you overcome from a grave traumatic brain injury diagnosis and recover from the loss of your father? That is the question we're going to explore today with our special guest on Flourish-Meant. Flourish-Meant is part of the Spark Media Network and can be heard on the Edify app. I'm your host, Tina Yeager, and we recorded this episode live at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention in Nashville. You might hear a little background noise. Our guest today is chart-topping indie Christian rock band Empowered frontman and founder Benny DiChiara. He's a singer, songwriter, and traumatic brain injury survivor. He also recently lost his father, and out of it was able to write an amazing song.
Benny, I am so honored that you are on Flourish-Meant today. I cannot wait to get into your story. It is one of the most powerful stories that I think our audience can hear about being inspired, about overcoming, and about recovering from the deepest and darkest and most painful places that we can imagine. Now, you have this glamorous career, right? But in the midst of that, you experienced a traumatic brain injury, which is like something people would think, you can't overcome that. You can't come back from that.
Right.
But God said, through Jesus, I can do whatever I'm going to do, right?
That's right.
So let's talk about how you can encourage people to understand that God used the most painful moments of your glamorous career and what happened 6 years ago to show that God can overcome anything. He's the God of the impossible.
He is.
So
He is. And if I could start with two words for your viewers and your listeners, the two most important words that I would hope they get from this is, but God.
But God, yeah.
Because there's really no reason I should be sitting here talking to you. So 6 years ago, I fell. Long story short, I fell asleep on a sofa. The alarm went off in my bedroom where my wife was. She brings my phone to me. I get over to the hardwood floor section of my living room. I've got a 20-minute gap. I do not know what happened. I still can't recall any of it. I think it's God's protective bubble because I don't need to remember. So she told the neurosurgeons that when she went to hand me my phone, I was horizontal. And they said, well, was he wearing socks? Was there water? Or did he trip? And none of that. How did he catch himself? None of that. And she said she just watched me drop. And when my head struck the hardwood floors, it sounded like a gunshot. So she said I rolled over because I was conscious, but I was crawling toward the recliner. She says, no, get into bed. And so I laid into bed. I was a Navy medic back in the day. So something was not right because the room's spinning and sounds. And I look over, I'm like, we need to go. So she was able to get me to our vehicle, drove to the hospital, straight into the emergency room. So MRIs, I cannot tell you how many I've had, all of that. So ICU for observation for a day and a half, whatever. They put me in a regular room. At the end of 3 days, it was like, your brain needs to heal. The only way it heals is it's going to shut down. You'll sleep a lot. And I was like, okay. So they released me home. And so every 3 hours, Donna became a nurse, right? So it was a little Ensure because I wasn't eating, a little Powerade because I needed fluids, and meds. So I think I was 198 when I got hurt. I went down into the 160s during that first month. I mean, it was.
So you lost 30 pounds in a month.
There's better ways, folks. So I'm just saying.
Don't hit your head.
So all of this, right? And I barely remember any of it. I mean, there's little spot memory things, barely remember any of it. So in the second month of my recovery, I was using, are you ready for this? A walker in my house to get around, get to the restroom. A walker, me in a walker. So I'm thinking to myself, Lord, what's going on here? But at some point, she was ready to be able to leave me and go to the grocery and things like that. So she was gone, and I share this with you because I want people to understand who our God is. And so as an artist, when I'm writing music, the Holy Spirit will come on and just like, here is a message and go. And so we go and we write about that. In this instance, I'm in the recliner, which I still sleep upright to this day because it just feels better. And I still don't have smell and taste. So I'm sitting there in the afternoon and I hear a male, audible male voice, powerful, in my living room. As soon as the words are spoken, I know who it is. And it's not someone breaking into my house, right? So it's
a familiar
it's
voice.
God.
You know this voice.
You know, it's my dad. And so God says, Benny, I have huge and great plans for you coming out of this thing. So I'm like, I did what anybody would do. I kind of snot cried like a baby until I fell asleep. I wake up, it's about 11:30. This happened for a couple of days in a row. And I'm literally trying to wrap my head around it because I'm still in the fog of recovery. And on the last day, he comes to me strong and biblical and says, Benjamin, I am telling you that I have
business.
Yes. It's like when your parents call you by your first and middle name, right? Benjamin Arthur. I'm sorry, Mom. So, but it's Benjamin, I'm telling you that I have huge and great plans for you coming out of this thing. And so I was cognizant. So I don't pray like most people pray. I kind of have a discussion. He and I.
It's a conversation, right?
It's all it is, right?
Yeah.
That's when you have that relationship.
It's not
that's
a
what it is.
thou and King James.
Which I'm a stickler for King James. I like all that old English stuff, but that's because I do. Anyway, I digress. So he tells me audibly then another message and says to me, so the next song that you write for me will be named Jeremiah 29:11. So it's my favorite verse in the Bible. I love it. It's the best promise ever. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you. And I'm like, Lord, you're affirming me through my favorite verse. I know what you're doing. He says, listen what I'm telling you. What I want to come out of this song is how I stepped into your life and saved it. I can do for anybody if they just press into me and follow what I'm doing. And I'm like, oh. He says, go to your office and write this down. So I'm going back and forth to my office on my blotter pad, third grader, big swoopy letters, and I'm writing lyrics that he is literally giving.
So was it difficult for you to write as you were recovering from this brain injury?
All of that was.
Just so that in case you're not understanding why he's saying he's writing in big swoopy letters. Because,
that was, as a matter of fact, when I would speak to people, my children, my wife, anybody, as it was coming, you and I talk, I would be like, so when I saw you earlier, so in my mind, I'm seeing the words, slowly. Right? And then they go, oh, those go together. That's how it was coming out. And everybody in my family's like, is this the new Benny? Because we just don't know. And so obviously now they're saying
frustrating for you at the same time.
It was very frustrating for me. Now I think they wish maybe he could have, but no. but everything's back but the spelling, right? And I'm okay with that. So I'm writing, and so for us, we're performance and worship. We're not praise and worship like in church, right? Because I don't have a pastor coming behind us. You need to feel Jesus when we're performing, and so we do. We talk about things in between the songs, this, that, and other.
So you're delivering messages.
Oh, absolutely.
Along with your worship. So
absolutely.
You're doing both of those roles.
Absolutely. And so,
so that's another frustrating thing that must have been to have come from that, to not be able to
do any of it.
Yeah.
Do any of it. And so there was a long break of nothing except for when I wrote that song. So I already had the title track for our new record, which is 3 Days. That was written already. And I knew I was working on the balance of it, but then God put that on me. I was like, oh. And so there was a big push to finish. And so Mikey Howard's our producer, and he says, let's get in the studio. And out of a brain injury, we cut this new record. And there's no reason why it should have been done, but God.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And we're able to reach people for him and point people to him and understand that. Now, don't get me wrong, because the brain injury People have had worse stuff. That's my story. My wife had breast cancer surgery 2.5 years ago. That's her story. My drummer, Mick, his 7-year-old last year got diagnosed with leukemia. So he wound up being at St. Jude's in Memphis for 6-7 months, chemotherapy, all these therapies.
And this is right around the time that you're beginning this new project.
Right after it. So right after the project. And so we're like, I'm looking at all this and I'm trying to, how do I put this all into perspective? But God. And so Mick, strong dad in Jesus, right? His son is in remission, total, like moving forward, going to school, melting kids' faces off about what Jesus did for him, right? And I'm like, great job, Dad. And right. And so, and too many times, I think, even as Christians, we get bogged down and go, God's just not existent in this, but yet he is, right? Right now, there's kind of a little mini world war going on in the world, right? God knew about it eons ago. Okay. There's this COVID thing that happened, right? God knew about it eons ago. My dad passed in October. God knew about it eons ago. Yet these things still came to pass, right? But God. Because if we believe that the Bible is the living word of God, and that he's the Alpha, the Omega, he's the beginning and the end, that he knows the number of hairs on our head, and they're counted before we're even born. How then did he not know all of these other things that are happening?
Your days were numbered and written in the book before one of them came to be, right?
Everything. And so I'm like, so when you get that, when you get and you're saved, and Jesus isn't just a name, right? He's the name above all names, and he lives in you. You look at all these things that are happening, and I tell people all the time, God's got this. And they go, is it that easy? Guess what? It really is. It really, really is. So when we perform, we're basically having a party for Jesus on a stage, right? And for me, it means more because he saved my life. And but for him, I'm allowed to be out there for him. So when my dad passed in October of 2020, it was a 9-day they diagnosed him with cancer 9 days later. It was like that. So we had the big discussion at the end, and I'm ordained, and his favorite nickname for me was Pastor Boy. So I'm like, Dad, I need you to tell me you know where you're going, because not only do you have a place at the buffet table, you have a name tag set up. So he laughs. He says, yes, Pastor Boy, I know where I'm going. I said, any other day, that would so be a cute answer. I need you to tell me. And he's like, Jesus died. He rose for me. I believe that I'm going to heaven. I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. And it doesn't matter what the doctors tell you. And to be honest and frank, it's going to suck for us. However, I know what your address is, so I'm going to see you again. And so the new single that we just released is called I'll Meet You There. It's Daddy's song in parentheses. And so it's not sad and morbid. Am I sad that my dad passed? Of course I am. And he's little Sicilian man he was, and he taught me about integrity growing up, all those type things. And I'm sad for that because we don't get to hang out anymore. And that's just something you miss, right? But again, I know what his address is. And it's the same address we're all going to for those of us who believe. And I know I'll see you again. So there's joy there, right? And had he not known Jesus, that joy would not be there.
And so your dad witnessed your recovery through the traumatic brain injury, and how you did it with faith. Which was it fully just, I believe God is going to bring something great out of this, or did you struggle with that process of recovery at times as well?
Well, the first month of recovery, I struggled with nothing because I don't remember anything. I was just sleeping. And people go through, again, different. My history is not your history, right, nor is it any of your listeners' histories. We all have something, right? And some of our garbage cans are bigger than others. Some have scented bags and some don't, right? Just to put it in a real world perspective, right? But when we are rooted and we have the foundation, God's got this, right? And that's our job. Our job is to live that, because I could walk around as a Christian and say I'm saved and have a Bible in my hand. I could have a Christian rock band and go do things and think that's enough. People don't care about that stuff. But when they see me aside from that, am I that same person?
Integrity.
Am I going to talk to, and it's consistency, right? And there's consistency in the word. The word does not falter. It's not a living, breathing, moving document. It is. Most governments around the world are set up, on the 10 Commandments. So we are so finite.
The word that holds the world together.
That's right. We're so finite, right? We don't understand what he's doing, yet he's got it all figured out. And I'm telling you, so we have a party from stage when we perform, because when we go to heaven, it's just going to be a party for him. And in live person, there'll be no unanswered questions that we would have had. And now, going through all of this traumatic stuff and pain and recovery and all that kind of stuff, do I still have questions? I still question some things. Just like my smell and taste being gone. I still question why. But does it deter my faith walk? And the answer to that is, in no way, shape, or form does that deter my faith walk. Like God.
So all this time that you're ministering to people from stage, you're performing and ministering to people.
Oh, yeah.
You are also building a foundation for what you would need to get you through your darkest time of suffering and to become that testimony that would minister to your Father.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the biggest moments of ministry that you had, was your Father was able to see how you lived what your message was.
Yeah, our walk is a stronger witness than what we speak.
For sure.
Right? It just is. It is for your children. It is for your spouse. It is for your friends. It is for anybody, but especially for those who do not have him in their life. They don't have God in their life. They don't believe Jesus is more than a prophet. And they won't believe that. But I tell people all the time, if you do not believe in miracles, please look at this. This isn't the prettiest thing in the entire world, but it is to him, and he decided to step in and save it.
Because it's reflecting
the face
him. Of God.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And if we could get a hold of that, right? If we can just get excited about that, we can change the world.
That's true. And that goes for you too. This isn't
Absolutely.
just for someone who's on stage.
That's right.
And that's why God spoke that message to you, that your suffering was going to impact everybody.
That's
that
right.
sees your testimony, that hears this beautiful song that you've written for the dad that you were able to minister to in those last moments. You weren't just pastor boy.
No.
You were with the presence of Jesus.
Absolutely.
That you showed what faith really is for your Father, and you were able to see that was bringing him to a home that you can look forward to seeing him in again.
That's right. I received that, and I appreciate that. And to your viewers and your listener, your life is your stage. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about that. Your life is your stage. What people see in you, that's your stage for him. So it's joyful, right?
It is.
It just is.
And you have this song about turning that grief, that mourning, into dancing.
Yeah,
which doesn't mean we don't mourn or we ignore the fact that we're mourning, because even Jesus wept.
That's right.
At funerals.
That's
so
right.
we do mourn and we do grieve. It's not something God intended when he created us. He intended just life. Death was something that came out of brokenness, and he's restoring that in eternal life.
You know what God just gave me as you said that, which is, my wife was like, "Are you emotionally invested in what's going on?" This is in the last week of my dad's life. And I'm like, listen, I'm medically trained from the military, so I need to know what appointment's next, what. And so I was very finite in that. And so I said, there'll be time for that. But that time's not now. So after Dad passed, my sisters, my mom, everybody's in the living room. So the nurse is in the room and she says, well, I need to undress him and bathe him. And I'm like, I'm going to help you with that. So she goes, oh, that's right. Navy Met. I'm like, yeah, I've done it for strangers. I can do it for Dad. So we're there. And I just want to tell you, I'm kneeling on the bed beside my dad's body. And the reason I say besides my dad's body, because, are you ready? That's what it was. Yeah. That's all it was. It's a very surreal thing. The spirit had obviously left his body. And he just did. So we took care of him, and then I helped wrap him up when the funeral home people came, and they were actually very moved by that. And we kind of tucked him away and sent him off, right? And then we went home, and the following day, that night, because I had been up for like 48 hours at this point, and Donna says, you might need to go get sleep. You look, you need sleep. So as I'm going into my bedroom, and this is to show you that it's not all of this all the time. I went like this, and I'm leaking, right? And I'm like, so this is how it's going to start. And so I've got I have a bench in my closet. So I grabbed my hand towel off the wall, and I'm rolling in there, and I just felt it coming, and come it did. And so it was facing the towel, and I'm praying and I'm crying at the same time, and I'm coaching myself. I'm like, come on, man, just and so I get a moment, and then boom, right back into it. My wife told my daughter, she says, I've never seen that. I've just never seen that. So have I had moments since that time? Yes. It's kind of like you get that kiwi in your throat when you're talking about it. It's like, ooh, kind of thing, right? But never have I gone back to that distraught, just broken down in my closet moment. In other words, my mourning hasn't happened every morning, because there's a joy that replaced it, because I know what's ahead, right? And then I'll get to see Daddy again. So, it's just a blast. It's just a blast.
And we do mourn because it shows that we value life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But man, yeah. So we released the song, and when we did, and Mick, my drummer, another thing we share in common, like he lost his dad to cancer too. And so we finished recording it, and I told him, I was like, man, our dads are just dancing right now about that. And he's like, right? And it's, there's joy to it. There's joy in any trauma in our life, regardless of what it is, if we just press into him. And all he's saying right now is, look at me.
Very good. So how can people stay in touch with you and get a copy of your new album and support you as an artist and in your ministry, and so they can kind of stay connected in a way that's going to help them be encouraged to move forward in the times they need to overcome themselves?
That'd be great. So thank you for that. So our website for the band is this is weird but easy. So it's Rockin' without a G. So it's ROCKIN, the number 4, Jesus. So rockinforjesus.com. It's easy to remember. CD Baby carries physical CDs for us, as well as if they go through the website, we could probably do that. We're on every single streaming known to man. The 3 days record just went over 270,000 streams on Spotify alone. So that's been kind of a neat thing. The singles that we've done since then, including Daddy's Song, is on there. And on our YouTube page, we have an official YouTube page too. It's just Empowered. And there's 2 or 3 official videos we've done for it. And we just did the official video for my dad's song that we did too. So it's exciting. And then we're going to do a new record this summer, and who knows what's coming out of that. So we're excited about it.
We look forward to being able to see all of the great things that God's going to continue pouring through you to bring that but God message.
That's right.
Into their lives.
That's right. But God. It's my favorite 2 words.
So and it should be everybody's favorite 2 words.
Favorite 2 words.
That's where we are. Until we say, hello again, God, when we get up to that other
That's
side
right.
where we're dancing in that party
That's right.
together.
That's
So,
absolutely right.
So appreciate you coming on for
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad we got a chance to do it.
So I hope that you follow the links and get in touch with all of his fantastic materials, that moving song, Daddy Song, and all the rest of the album. And I also hope you come back for the next episode of
Flourish-Meant is part of the Spark Media Network and can be found on the Edify app.